Today, I want to talk about some of my thoughts related to practice. If you haven't gotten a chance to watch the video that Matt posted yesterday that we called The Call to Practice, I highly encourage you to go back and watch that first because I am definitely informed by some of the things that he shared yesterday. I'm hoping that by technological magic, I'm able to put the link to his video right here so that it's easy for you to find and you don't have to navigate through our videos. This will be very impressive if I am successful, and if I'm not, I will figure out how to do that in the future. So, yeah, I really liked what Matt had to share yesterday. I even took notes. And it got me thinking about practice in my life. And as soon as I started thinking about that, I had this fun realization that making these videos is a new practice for me. I have committed to doing it with regularity, and in that way, I intend to do it better and better over time. And so, yeah, it's like this cool inception moment I'm having. I'm talking about practice, I'm doing practice, you're watching me. So I feel really excited and grateful for that, to be able to explore it, to be able to examine it as I'm moving through it, and then use that to share with you some of my thoughts about practice. I specifically have been thinking about what makes anything that we do a practice versus just doing something. Matt said, something you do versus the way we engage with anything. So yeah, what is that difference for me? And, for me, it's easy with these videos. I had never recorded a video of me talking about something, let alone then share it with people. And it became a practice because that first experience was intriguing enough to me to do it again. After a couple times of doing it, I was able to observe some things. For instance, you already have noticed if you've watched the other videos that those videos are very quiet. I learned my phone doesn't do well recording audio for some reason. And so I could feel embarrassed about that. I did feel a little frustrated because otherwise I liked a lot of what I had to say. But instead, I realized it was my phone. I'm on now a different piece of machinery, and I am projecting more so because I've also learned that by watching Matt. And I also, recognize the value of moving through something with a certain perspective. If I'm looking to make these videos the most professional, best videos I can make them right off the bat, I'm just not going to be successful necessarily because I've never done this before. And so the way I like to learn is through experience. And so then I have to be vulnerable enough to maybe not do it perfectly, whatever that means, the first go around. Perfectly would have been closer to my first two videos being louder. But in the realm of what's super high risk here, that was okay that it went that way, and I learned, and I am excited that this video is not going to have that audio problem. And yeah, it just gets me thinking about how we engage in our daily lives. I know I can be really hard on myself about relatively small things. But if I regard it as a practice, for me, something shifts. There's more spaciousness to explore, to be curious. And in that way, it also made me aware that I have a movement practice. I've been dancing for 33 years of my life. It started as a kid as something I did, but as I got older, I believe it evolved into a practice. And that happened because I now, as a 36-year-old, not interested in dancing how I danced when I was in middle school or high school or college. Maybe there's elements, aspects of those experiences still in me that I still, explore through movement. But I'm curious about how me now dances and what I can learn from dance, and what dance can show me. And so it's a little different than trying something new. Something familiar has to become new, or you have to have an openness to the ways you can explore something something you've mastered that maybe feels really comfortable to share with people because you know it so well. But to truly, I believe, hold it as a practice, you have to be open to experiencing a newness of it when you engage with it. And so, I contemplate different ways of moving. And I also want to say that I recognized movement as a practice for me after I didn't do it for a while. I went about a year at one point, not dancing really at all, not moving very much at all. And I became very ill. And when the time came around that I started contemplating drawing it into my life again, I did so very intentionally, and I wanted to honor and regard movement in my life in the moment that I was acknowledging that without it, I became not well. Then I perceived it deeply as a practice, for it provided for me a baseline of wellness. I felt in relationship to that action in a long-term, nourishing way. And so, yeah, practice versus something we do, the way that we encounter that with something new is different than the way we encounter it with the things we've done for a long time. But there's, in both instances, opportunities to explore it from a new understanding. But in that, I was thinking, so what is fundamental about how something goes from something we do to something we practice? I believe there are four elements that come into play that really transition us from doing something to holding it as a practice. The first thing is intention. And for me, that's about how I step into it. I, could just press record and make a video. But for me, the way I experience the practice of making these videos is thinking about why I'm making the video, what I'm going to talk about, who I'm intending to speak to. That allows me to enter into this with an intention, with a inspiration and hope for what it becomes from there once I've shared it. The second thing for me is presence. I want to enter into the actions that I hold as practice with my full self, my authentic self, present and here and engaged. So that enables me to be embodied in it in a way that I believe helps me experience it fully, but also, gives others an opportunity to, in this case, where my practice is creating these videos, my hope is that you seeing me being genuine makes you believe me, makes you want to connect with me. That's my intention, informs my ability to be present in that way. The third thing is sensation. And for me, that's what I feel in the experience of being engaged in practice and being able to track that and note it and utilize those sensations to inform how I move through it. I am able to speak to myself. I am able to be self-aware as I move through, learning something or being engaged in a practice that can inform how I move through it, the pace and the way that I traverse it. And all of that is very useful information that allows us to draw the most we can from our practice. And finally, I feel like an element that makes something shift from something we just do to a practice is a pathway of curiosity that leads to a joyfulness. And I phrase it like that because I do see us needing to approach the things we hold in practice like a child, with a playfulness, with a curiosity, with an awe that allows us to just be with it rather than make it be a certain way or determine how we've been successful. It makes me so sad when I think about how loose, how fun I experienced, games and different, activities as a child. And now I sometimes can feel really nervous about playing a game with a group of people or moving in a way I've never moved. And so I try to engage with that spirit of curiosity, that recognition that, what's the worst that's going to happen? You got to try something to know if you like it. You got to try something over and over to see if you can develop and grow in your way of doing that thing. But it's often worthwhile, and the beginning is potentially less skillful because you are learning the skill. And as an adult, I think we have a much harder time being with that than we did when we were kids. So try to remember that. And that pathway of curiosity, and we can see this in kids when they, follow something in the playground and they find a new, piece of the playground to play on and a new way that they can engage with it, and they light up and it's so fun, the first time you swing on a swing set or whatever it is. I think that is the energy we can find in our practices. If we can let go of the idea of some amount of success or predetermined way that we have to experience it in order for it to be worthwhile. Can it be worthwhile just in that it's the thing we're doing in that moment? And how blessed are we to be able to do that in that moment? Can that be enough? And so intention, presence, sensation, a curious path that leads to joyfulness. That's what I think makes an action that I'm just doing, transition and transform into a practice. And for me, dance as a practice, although it's something I've done my entire life, offers me an opportunity to find something new in it and something new in me through having an intention showing up all the way with my presence, noticing the sensations in my body that tell me how it's going and what I need, and following that curious path that may lead to something that doesn't feel good all the time, because sometimes that's what a practice does. It shows us our edges. It shows us some rawness, some things in process, some things on the verge of healing or in need of healing that we need to pay attention to. And sometimes by way of that, by way of moving through that, or just direct, some days, joy, absolute joy and peace. Peace of mind to know that you are enough. Peace of mind to know that you are an expression of yourself, of beauty. You know, even if you're not doing something perfectly, you're doing it. And if you have a smile on your face, that's what I tell all my dance students, you know, nobody knows you made a mistake until you make that face that you make when you're like, crap, messed up. If you can keep smiling, most people won't notice you even made a mistake. So hold on to that joy, and you can just bust right through that moment onto the next one where you have a totally different experience. And that's practice. It's always there. It invites you to return over and over again. And in that, you know, you learn, you grow, you become grateful for the opportunity to engage with it in and of itself. It doesn't have to be more than that. It's already a gift that you have that opportunity yet again. So I am really grateful for my practice and practices, of which look like a lot of different things. Love to hear about your practices. I'd love to hear your thoughts on these 4 elements of shifting something from a thing you do to a practice, and if that rings true for you, if there's anything else you think really shapes that difference. And yeah, anything else about your practice and your experience of it. And thank you, Matt, for your video and inspiring me to think about this a little bit more. And again, thank you all for tuning in and for watching. I look forward to learning more and more, and I humbly appreciate you witnessing me in my process of a new practice. And I hope you all are courageous enough to try something new and to hold all the things you do in your life at some time in some way with a spirit of practice, and see what that provides for you. Thank you.